Hello guys, welcome to one more lesson. In today's lesson and in the next one too, we'll be implementing what WordPress calls the WordPress loop. Those will be very interesting lessons and we'll be bringing this area here to life. But before we even start this lesson, let me just show you the solution for the task I gave you in the previous lesson, alright? We needed to recreate this menu here, this social media menu, and let's see if you managed to do that. Here in the dashboard, I went here to the appearance menu once again, menus, and then just created another menu called social media, added some custom links to it. But the detail here is that in those custom links, I just went ahead and passed this I element here to the navigation label for all of the menu items, right? For the URL, it doesn't matter. I just passed this hashtag. And for the other items, as you can see, here is the same. I passed this I here with the class. And lastly, I just associated this menu created here in the WordPress menu manager to this position I had created earlier in my functions.php file, that second menu location, all right? Here in my code, instead of the UL, I just called once again the WP nav menu function, passed an array, and then called theme location using that social media menu position, passed also this menu class argument with this footer share class. You remember that we had an element. I don't quite remember if it was a nav or a UL or a div, but this class here. So I used this menu class to add this class. Also called container and pass an empty value to avoid creating that div in between the nav and the UL in my final code. So that was all. Let me just go back to today's subject here. We were talking about the WordPress loops, and my question was how can we bring this area here to life using the WordPress loops? We'll be actually transforming each of these elements here in a WordPress post. It's simply because posts in WordPress are loaded with the help of those loops. Those are while loops that WordPress uses to compose pages and list of posts, etc. The great advantage is that we can later manage those posts by, for example, modifying the images related to them, and also modifying the project names, the post titles actually, and the category names, and add more information such as, for example, the date when the post was published, the author of that post, you name it. What this loop actually does is it checks in the WordPress database if there are posts, and it will do this according to some criteria or using some default configurations. And if there are posts, those posts will be displayed in the page according to some format that you as a developer, you determine in the theme. So for example, you can display the post title and the post image and you name it. You'll see that later. There are two kinds of WordPress loops. We have the default loop and the custom loop. In this course, we'll be creating the second of those loops, the custom loop, because we'll need to define some of the characteristics of these listings. So for example, you need to define how many items will be displaying in this section here, because by default, WordPress loads 10 posts at a time, but we only need 8 posts because we have 8 items here. We also need to specify the categories from which those posts will come from. There are actually 4 categories in this list of posts here, and we'll only need to call the posts related to those categories. And why do we use such loops? In order for us to understand that better, we will head over again to our code. So in the index.php file, you see guys that we have here this section called works. And inside this section, we have a couple of divs here. with this work class. So we have, in total, we have 8 items. And if you pay close attention to each of them, you have the same structure here being repeated all the time. So we have this div, and then inside this div we have an anchor tag, and inside this anchor we have an image, and then a div with this overlay class, and then another div, and then this h1, and lastly this paragraph here. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to introduce you to this very important concept of WordPress, the WordPress loops. Because what we do, in fact, is that we'll get rid of all of those HTML divs here, and we'll be working with just one of them. For example, this one here. And this same HTML markup here will be inside this loop that will repeat itself 8 times in our page, and each time it repeats, it will bring different information, such as, for example, a different image, a different post title, and a different category. So this is more or less how this will work. You'll need some base in order for those loops to work. For example, we have to create 8 posts in our WordPress installation, and then of course also 4 categories: website design, branding, logo design, and graphic design. We have 2 posts for each of those categories. So let's go ahead first and then create the categories. So let's move to our dashboard here. Under posts, categories, I'll be adding all of those categories. So first one will be website design, then graphic design, logo design, and then lastly branding. Right, we have all of them here, and we'll be also needing later the IDs for each of these categories. So if we, for example, mouse over each of them, you see that we have this tag underscore ID, and we have a number. So this is the ID corresponding to this particular category. So this one is 3, and then we have 4, 5, and 6. Yours may vary, all right? So make sure you write down all of those IDs, all right? Because we'll need that later. Now that we have all of the categories, we'll go ahead now and create the posts themselves. Since it's a very easy task and I think you are used to creating posts in WordPress, I will speed up this video, okay? So let's create the first one, and we'll be back soon. So that's it. We have all of those posts created, and they are assigned to each of the categories I wanted. So 2 posts for each of those categories. But there's still something left to do because we don't have the images yet associated with each post. And if we edit this post, for example, you will see that there's no place here for us to actually add those images. WordPress calls those images post thumbnails. It's actually very easy for us to add them. You just need to enable what WordPress calls theme support. There are a bunch of theme support you can add to your theme. In another course, I talk a lot about those supports that WordPress lets you enable. But for this course, the only support we need is one called post thumbnails. It's very easily actually to enable it. Just go to our function.php file once again, and then call add theme support. So those are all of the supports that WordPress lets you add. So I'll be using this one here called post-thumbnails. Post thumbnails. And then if you go back to our admin, reload this page, now you see that we have this meta box here called featured image. You can set any image you want to this post specifically here, and that featured image will be used as a representation of that post in WordPress. We have all of those images already available for us in the template we downloaded earlier. The easiest thing to do here is go to the WordPress media library and get all of the images here and move them to this library. All right, and associate each of the images to a specific post. So let's go to our post again, and let's go ahead and do it. I'll just speed up the video again, okay? Alright, we got everything in place here. We have all of the posts created with all of the categories and all of the images. Everything is inside our database and is ready for the loop to handle them. In the next lesson, we'll be adding our first loop, and it will be organizing our posts in this specific area of the template here. Alright, hope you guys have enjoyed today's lesson, and I see you in the next one. Bye!